opacity of an object refers to how well you can see the objects below it. We've placed our green oval over a black rectangle. Since we can't see the black rectangle inside the borders of the green oval, its opacity is said to be 100%. We can look at the opacity box at the top of the screen to verify this. You can also do this from the Appearance panel, which gives you a few different options. Launch the Appearance panel by clicking the Appearance panel icon on the right side of the screen. This panel allows us to view and edit the attributes of the selected object. Since the green oval was selected, we see its attributes in the window. It has a 1-point stroke and a green fill. Currently, opacity is set at default, which is 100%. You can click on opacity to verify this. When you click this, a new panel unfurls. You can set a new opacity for the object in the opacity drop-down or type in a figure. Let's set it to 50% opacity and see what that looks like. Now whatever is underneath the selected object is now visible. In Illustrator CS6, you can specify different opacities for the stroke and the fill. You can also set the opacity of a selected object in the toolbar at the top of the screen. Chances are, if you use Illustrator often enough, you're not going to be satisfied with basic color blends. You're going to want to create custom patterns to give your objects depth, or just a more interesting look. You can make these out of objects or artwork you've created or imported from another program. Illustrator CS6 comes with a few fill patterns, but we're going to show you how to make your own in a minute. Right now though, let's just show you how to add a fill from the Swatches panel. First, we're going to create a simple shape. We've chosen to use the polygon tool for this demonstration. First, we're going to create a simple shape. Grab the polygon tool and draw a simple polygon on your artboard. Now launch the Swatches panel. You can find it in the Panels bar on the right. Here you can see there's a variety of predefined color swatches you can use to create a fill. When you create your own patterns, they will be stored here. To use these swatches as a fill, you make sure the object you want to fill is selected, then click on one. To fill our polygon, we're going to use the brown swirly pattern swatch that is 3 rows down and 3 columns over. You can see that instead of a solid color, we now have a fairly intricate pattern inside of our shape. You can also create your own patterns using shapes. We're going to walk you through the process of making a simple pattern using a colored star shape. Practical hands-on experience is the best way to become familiar with a process. First, we're going to create a star shape and color it red. You don't need to worry about how large it is. Illustrator will resize it when it creates the swatch. With the object selected, choose Object from the menu bar, then Pattern, Make. 2 windows will open. One simply informs you that a new pattern has been added to the Swatches panel. Click OK. Our pattern is now in pattern editing mode and takes up the whole artboard. The Pattern Options dialog is also open so that we can edit our pattern. Take another look at the artboard. The stars are in a pretty regular pattern that might not look that great as a pattern. You'll notice that our original star is outlined in blue in the center of the pattern. To change the spacing, click on the star and drag it to a new position. You can also rotate the stars slightly. In the Pattern Options window, we're going to rename our pattern. Simply click in the name box and type a new name. Let's call ours Stars. You can also change the way the stars are tiled. In our example, tile type is grid, which is the default. You can also select the height, width, horizontal spacing, vertical spacing, overlap, etc. When you're finished editing the pattern, you can save a copy or click Done at the top of the window. Your pattern is now saved in the Swatches panel and can be applied to an object. To edit the pattern later, you can open the Swatches panel and double-click on it. This will relaunch pattern editing mode. A gradient is a transition between different colors, or even between different shades of the same color. Here is an example of a gradient that goes from yellow to orange. To create a gradient fill, make sure the object you'd like to apply it to has been selected. Then expand the Gradient panel. Let's take a closer look at the Gradient panel. Here you can select whether you'd like a radial gradient or a linear one. Currently we have a linear gradient. Click on Radial to see what happens. As you can see, the gradient goes from yellow in the center to orange at the edges. You can select the color, angle, opacity, etc. Double-click on the yellow and orange color markers to change the color. You can select and apply gradients from the Swatches panel. To do so, launch the Swatches panel and click the Swatch Libraries menu. From there, move your mouse over Gradients in the list. Look over the list to see what options are available to you. Gradients can be applied to the stroke as well as the fill, and in much the same way. You can create your own gradient and add them to the Swatch library. To do so, we're going to go back to the Gradient panel. You can drag the handles to change the length of each shade of color, or you can click on them and select a color from the color chooser. Let's add green and red to our gradient. These handles are called color stops. To add a new color stop, click in any empty area at the bottom of the color band. You can use the diamonds at the top of the bar to increase or decrease the length of the transition. The trash can icon on the right allows you to delete a color stop. It is only active when a color stop has been selected. To save your gradient, simply click the arrow to the left of the type box. At the bottom of this, click the Add to Swatches button. The gradient will then be available for you to use again. The Gradient tool in the toolbox gives you one more way to create and edit gradients. Simply select the object you want the gradient applied to, and then click the Gradient tool in the toolbox. As you can see, a white line appears. You can quickly and easily create a gradient from any angle and at any orientation. First, it makes a simple linear gradient from left to right. But if you click and drag diagonally, it creates a gradient at a near 45-degree angle. When you hover your mouse over the white line, a color bar appears, allowing you to create or manipulate color stops, in much the same way you could do in the Gradient panel. This bar is called a gradient annotator. Positioning the bar in different places on the object affects the gradient. Take a moment to experiment with the different positions.